Now, we didn't touch the alcohol. No, they were strict about that. It was snacks we served. And you learned how to talk to the grown-ups, and they were Mr. and Mrs. Wood. We knew the first names. We weren't allowed to use them. But I'm realizing, and then my brother saying that helped him become a bank vice president, even though he hated the parties.
Yeah.
That this, again, I'm realizing later on in life just how important that training was when I was a child. The parties and the selling candy for charity.
So I suppose if we were to translate that for students or researchers, it would be getting involved in communities, societies, conferences, any sort of interaction.
Well, the thing that I've found from all the years I've been doing this talk, the pilot checklist principle and written instructions in a checklist format would prevent firings on just so many jobs. And then the problem with the lighting, and let's avoid multitasking chaos during the holidays at a store. That I can think of a case now where an 18-year-old failed at Christmas time at a bookstore, which normally would have been a fabulous job for her, but not their Christmas wrapping station. Oh, that was chaos. And or a job at a clothing store, but Christmas time was chaos. And that I try to avoid that, not start a job at that. She started a job during Christmas chaos, and that did not work. So let's avoid that. The things that just overload the processing speed. And then we have a great bookstore, and but their Christmas wrapping station, I took one look at that and I'm going, I'd put the wrong book in the wrong wrapper, and the person would get the wrong book, and it would just be a mess. And normally that bookstore would have been a wonderful place for someone on the spectrum to work.
Now, as you mentioned about utilizing back doors, for instance, for myself, I really, really want to become the world's best teacher on understanding brains. Are there any, are you ever in the UK or any conferences where I potentially could be able to shadow in order
Well,
to...
I don't have any conferences in the UK, but the other thing, when I started teaching my livestock handling class, I learned a lot, and one of the mistakes I made on the drawing assignment for designing facility is I started with a facility way too complicated, and I had to give them an assignment that was simpler.
Okay, so what makes a good teacher?
I'm really early on, and I got better and better at teaching my class. Lots and lots of pictures. I have lots of slides.
Do you ever have to translate for those who aren't picture thinkers, or do you teach in your style and hope they're able to follow?
Well, I now recognize that there are differences, and there's some stuff on cattle handling, like the diagram of how that horse needed to move for my student that just finished my class. I don't know another way to teach it except some kind of visual thing. Because you have to make a movement pattern. And that's really hard to describe. It's easier to make it a diagram. But what makes me so happy is he took the diagram either off my PowerPoint presentation or off of one of my books and went out and just did it on a ranch. And it worked. Moving groups of cattle, he did it with this horse. And the other cowboys at first thought he was crazy, but then they could see that it was working. That made me happy. Okay, you see, there's some things where you really need the visual. You have to use a visual format. Now, when I talk about stress in cattle, yes, I can talk about things like, well, the cortisol level was higher, and the nanograms per milliliter, instead of being at 10 nanograms, it was at 60. That's like horrible. Okay, so because I understand the different kinds of thinking exist. See, I tell business leaders, your first step is you have to realize that different thinking exists. I didn't know it existed until I was in my late 30s.
I'm sure a lot of them also still don't realize it fully exists.
Yeah, that's, they don't realize, I thought everybody thought in pictures. But one thing I've noticed about verbal thinkers, they really overgeneralize. How do I teach students with autism? They're not even putting in any age ranges. Am I doing a little kids early intervention? Are we trying to get a verbal teenager into a job? And the other issue is driving. Let's learn how to drive. The
Um,
written test or the driving test?
The driving test, because it was the exam pressure. It was, it felt different, so I was more nervous. Very
But you
much.
also haven't had enough practice.
No, I had more hours than most of my friends, but clearly not enough hours compared to what I needed.
Well, I did that mailbox would be in kilometers about I would have done 12 kilometers of driving 6 days a week.